So welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Sure.
Your character obviously is hugely vital in the show, in the mythology of the show. So the first question we want to ask you was, do you remember how you prepared for the role originally?
Oh gosh. I remember feeling a little stressed out about it because the time, I think it was 1993, opportunities to get larger guest starring roles in American television series that were shooting in Vancouver was a relatively rare phenomenon. So I felt like, I remember feeling that there was a lot of pressure. And it was hard to pick up kind of the tone of the show from the script. I hadn't really read anything like it before. There was some sci-fi stuff going on in Vancouver, but there was something kind of different about the feel of it. And I was having a little trouble kind of identifying what the vibe was. So I didn't really have that. I didn't really have a sense of it going in. But one thing that I do remember was the sides that they had given me was the scene in the Winnebago where I'm having a seizure, where I wake up from a seizure. So acting out an epileptic seizure was part of the audition. So I had some research to do to kind of figure out what that was, what that was on the body, and what your state of mind is when you come out of something like that. Yeah, so that was one of the things I had to prepare for, sure.
Kind of an intense audition scene to have to
Yeah.
act out something medically when you don't have that affliction.
Yeah, but that's one of the great things about acting, is you get to kind of poke into corners that you don't normally occupy, and that was certainly one of them for me. So yeah, it was kind of fun to research that.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, what it was like working on the X-Files at that time?
Gosh, it was so long ago, but let's see what I can dig up here. It was very exciting because the show was still new. Like they weren't very many episodes into the season, and there was a real sense from a lot of the crew that they weren't quite sure what the show was. They certainly, there was no real feel like we're onto something big here. I think some of them were actually like, I don't even know if this thing's going to last the season. So that part of it was really interesting. It was certainly exciting to be a part of something new that you definitely felt like it was sort of breaking some new ground, and at least in a way that people were hadn't really experienced before. It was sci-fi, like it was a sort of sci-fi conspiracy, sort of intrigue, mystery, action. Yeah, that part of it was neat. It was a great experience for me. It was the first kind of big show I'd ever done on an American series, so that was very exciting for me. It really felt like a great opportunity, and I had a great time working on it. It was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
You had roles early on, and then you came back later in the show. Do you have a favorite memory aside from being sucked out of an airplane?
That was actually pretty cool. That does go up there for sure when they brought me back. Well, first of all, at the end of the first shoot, I think I worked on the show for 6 days, and at the end of the day, David Duchovny said, this character is pretty cool. I think we should bring this guy back somehow. And I was like, sounds good to me. But then, you kind of forget about it. And then 3 years later, I got a phone call saying that my agent called me saying they wanted an availability check, see if you're around. They were doing this 2-part thing, and they want to bring you back. And I was like, oh, fantastic, great. That had never happened to me before. So that was kind of exciting. I go back my first day on set to do the 2-part episode in season 4. I walk up into the makeup trailer, and David's sitting in the chair down at the end of the makeup trailer, and he goes, see, I told you to get you back here. So he kept his word, which was nice.
Like that. He's good like
so that I remember that was a nice memory. Yeah, there was lots of great memories. I mean, yeah, putting me up on the big rig in that first episode, and they're flashing these big, 5,000 kilowatt lights at me and telling me to shake like I'm doing the bacon, and and all that kind of stuff. It was a good time. Yeah, it was a great time.
Do you have any specific memories of like the crew, or like you said with David, anything specific of that?
He was really a generous guy. He's incredibly intelligent guy, and very calm. I was I was pretty nervy as a young man. I was, had a lot of really kind of frenetic energy. So I always enjoy working with people like him. He's so laid back, very chill. Um, yeah, very chill, very kind, very generous. I had less to do with Jillian, but she was also really great. Great to be around. I really remember her, having to really work hard on her dialogue. Like her dialogue was so challenging because she was always the one who had to, dispute everything and provide rational explanations for why these things couldn't be.
Of course.
Whereas his character was always running on passion and instinct.
Right.
Hers was running on rationale, science, and logic.
Not
And
easy.
deduction, right? So her dialogue was harder, I think, in a lot of ways. So she was always, I always saw her off drilling. I think they had somebody, to run lines with her and work through it. So she had a lot. She had a pretty tough job, actually.
I never really thought about that. I mean, I know she had difficult dialogue, but I guess I never really thought
Well, she had like all the medical explanations,
Oh,
the
yeah.
scientific, all that kind of stuff. That kind of dialogue is hard when you don't do it all the time. And this was early on in the series, so she probably got better at it as she went along. But it's that stuff is challenging.
What do you personally think happened to Max?
I think. Well, at the end of the first episode, I think what is inferred by the show is what happened in the story.
Okay.
Like at the end of that first episode, he was taken away somewhere. And when he got back in season 4, he had been brought back somehow. So yeah. And then, I mean, of course, his untimely and getting sucked out of an airplane was an amazing way to end a character. I mean, I'm not going to say, I wish it had been otherwise. It would have been great if he could have come back to even more. But it was such a great ending. And clearly when they zip him up at the end, that's what happened. That was the end of poor Matt.
Do you remember how they did that scene with you coming out of actually being pulled out of the airplane? Do you remember how that was done?
Yeah. I had to go in and they had to make a harness for me, like almost like a little booster seat, like a little shell that went around my waist and my hips. I had to get fitted for that. They made it and went inside my pants.
Oh.
And then on the side of it, there was a little piece where they could attach it to a mechanical arm. So that's how so then the mechanical arm was, hooked up to a crane, right? And so that's how they floated me in. So it looked like I was floating, but I was actually attached to an arm that was hidden from the angle of the camera. So that's how they moved me in and out of the airplane. And then for the actual last shot where I get pulled back, they got me out of that. And then they put me into a different kind of harness that had all these bungee cords at the back, so that they kind of stretched. They kind of stretched it, and then they put me in this thing, and then they got the wind and everything going, and then they just pulled the trigger and it kind of flung me back into a big pad. And I only did a light version of that. There was a stunt guy that did a much more dynamic version of that, but they did do one with me in it. I think they used the stunt guy though in the shot.
Did you ever get to go into Max's trailer? Did you ever go look around in the trailer? I was just curious.
Well, we shot scenes in the Gulf Stream. We shot scenes in there we shot scenes in there. So yeah, they just, I don't know where they got that Gulf Stream from. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love
but they just dressed it up and filled it full of old radio equipment and all kinds of stuff.
Did you have a favorite? What was your favorite character aspect of Max? Was it, you said you were very he was almost like frenetic. What was it about Max that was?
Yeah, his jumpy energy was kind of contagious, and well, in that first episode, certainly I really tuned into his enthusiasm for what he was pursuing, right? Which is his hunger to find out the truth, what's out there, what's going on, and that's the big thing that I remember from the character, and I was really pleased with the director. Larry Shaw was his name. He kind of let me run. He let me do all kinds of kooky things, most of which never made it on into the episode. But there was a lot of playfulness with the character, and that's what they wanted. They wanted somebody who was kind of, on the side there, coming in at a different angle.
Having been part of the X-Files, why do you think the show is still relevant 27 years after the pilot?
I don't really know. I mean, I think it had a personality of its own that hasn't really been repeated in quite the same way. So I think that it's become like a favorite cocktail. People just love the taste and the look of it. I think that, I mean, they sent me to a convention in Arizona, a couple of years after I did that, and one of the fans at the convention asked me, did you believe in the conspiracy theories that are being touted and put forward by the show? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think human beings are actually that good at conspiracies. I don't think they're very good at maintaining them. I don't know. That's just my Canadian perspective. Maybe I'm just a little naive. Who knows, right? But I think that it speaks to people's desire to pursue the truth of things, right? To get to the bottom of things, and to probe mysteries and find out what makes things work, the things that we don't understand in the world and we don't understand in the universe. And I think that's the appeal of those shows. So yeah, I think that's probably the broad appeal that's lasted through the decades that have elapsed since then.
Now, same amount of time, 27 years later, what would you say to the fans? What would you like to say to the fans of the show?
That I appreciate that I had the opportunity to take part in something that speaks to them. I guess I appreciate their appreciation. I still get the odd letter every now and then. I'll get one or two things every year from somebody who wants me to sign a card or something like that, and mail it back to them. And that's fine. I have no trouble doing that. It's flattering when you get to be part of something that speaks to people and that they connect with. That's the whole reason we go into, that's why I became a performer, because I wanted to affect people with the stories that I tell. So yeah, that's and what else would I say? I don't know. That's about it. If you're a fan of the show, I think that's great. It's great. It sounds very exciting. I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank